All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another BA professional for this semester. As always, my name is Francis Asuko, and I am a fourth year International Bachelor of Arts student here at Memorial. And I will be your host. In case you're new here and aren't quite familiar with what we're doing, BA Professional is a career conversation series organized by the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, where we speak to different alumni of the faculty and get key info on how they were able to and how we can also forge our own unique career path. Today, without further ado, I would like to introduce our very special guest, Mr. Evan Burry. Hi, Evan.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. A little tired, but it is what it is.
I guess I'll give a little bio for Evan for those of us who don't know him. Evan Burry is an academic researcher, a former social studies teacher, as well as a BA and BEd and MBA graduate, seeing the effects of cultural loss on his home province of Newfoundland, as well as the community where he taught in the Northwest Territories, created Stormy Shore Studios, which is a company dedicated to developing mass market video games as a means to preserve and share historical and cultural stories of the beautiful province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Eventually, Mr. Burry hopes to expand the company's focus globally to help other regions tell culturally and historically significant stories. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
All right, perfect. The first question I'll usually ask is if you could give us a kind of a run through what your average day looks like with your work and whatnot.
My average day is anything but consistent, and in some ways, anything but average. It's not often regularly scheduled hours in the sense that I know I'm working a 9 to 5. I work across time zones with an international team and constantly fielding issues. So it's one of those things where an average day could include me working a regularly scheduled something like a 9 to 5 for most, or it could mean that I actually start late and I end up working late into the evening. And there are mornings where I've worked till 3 in the morning, working through problems. So that's one of the things with video game development, digital media in general, is that those last minute glitches, not very fun. And then you got to brainstorm how to get through it. And my focus is more on the business management side, the writing side, the supervising side. So my technical knowledge has been growing as I've developed the company. So I'm depending on others to help me in a lot of ways, but I'm also learning. So it stretches me pretty thin sometimes. So overall, my average day is not consistent, all over the place. And
definitely
I'm
keep you on your
often
toes.
in my home office.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of what it's like, kind of running a business can be expected in that situation. But I would also like to ask, was the goal always to start a business, or is that something you kind of discovered kind of through your degree or maybe other activities?
Yeah, it was never not never, but it wasn't a consistent goal from when I was young or when I started my degrees at all. It actually came about partway through my MBA. And basically I've been thinking about ways to harness my skills and bring in my BA and my BEd into something that I could use my MBA for. And the business idea came from that, my love for video games and my experiences using that while teaching. But during my Bachelor of Arts, during my Bachelor of Education, during my Bachelor of Education, I was going to be a teacher. That was the clear, path there. But there were no business inklings along those lines at that time. It didn't come around until my MBA, I'd say.
Yeah, better late than never, right? You got to
absolutely
experience a couple things before you got there. I also wanted to ask, what were some steps you took, specifically after you graduated, you think helped you in the job market and whatnot? The experiences that end up leading you to where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I can talk in specifically to, I guess, in 3 stages in my 3 degrees. So with the Bachelor of Arts, I initially didn't know what I wanted to do in the job market. It wasn't always doing a BA to become a teacher. it was a lot of changing majors, to be honest. I started my BA in BC, transferred to MUN, and I don't know how many times did I change my major now. I think I started poli-sci, then went to philosophy, then went to criminology, then went to sociology, then went to history and settled on history and got my BA in history. But it was late in my I guess academic career with respect to the BA that I decided I want to be a teacher. Then I jumped immediately into my BED. So there was no time for jumping into the job market. Then it was semester finished right into BED, then did my BED, and I immediately jumped into a teaching position from that and taught for 3 years. So there wasn't much time to really think about what was out there. But with the MBA, it did give me a lot of time to look at the market and see where I could fit in and how I could slot in the economy as a whole, I guess. And with Newfoundland, it there's been some tough economic times, and it is scary and it's daunting to figure out where to go from there.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I wanted to also ask, what were some things you think, you kind of mentioned that you kind of went kind of back to back with a degree. So not specifically even about the job markets, particularly after you graduated the BA, but some things that you learned during the BA that you think are still helpful to you even now as you run a business.
I'd say two big ones for me were writing skills. And I'm not saying I couldn't write before the BA, but the BA forced me to write in such a way where I had to be very conscious about my writing. And I never had to be in the past. I was always into writing and I enjoyed writing, but the standard was that much higher during my BA at MUN that I had to adjust. And I initially struggled a lot early on in my education to make that adjustment from high school to MUN. And the instruction I got and the support I got with report writing really helped me. And I mean, I published a paper eventually, so clearly it got me somewhere. But that's where it all started.
Something came out of it for sure.
Yeah, it was with my BA. That's where it all started. So I'd say with writing in general, and it applies to business report writing, it's just that foundational basis for solid academic writing and being able to adjust from there was really important. And I'd say the second thing was, in some ways, this is going to sound really fluffy, but like responsibility for my own actions with respect to learning and professionalism. So, the first few years of post-secondary are sometimes like a bit messy, where you're trying to figure out where you're going to go and what to do. But once I got a handle on it, through the BA at MUN, I began to really get a handle on who I was as a person and what I needed to do to succeed in life and how to achieve in courses. And I adjusted to do that, but it was tough overall. But yeah, I think those two things overall, the writing skills and just that ability to gain not necessarily professional experience, but professional abilities that I can apply in the workforce.
Sure. That's a great answer. Thank you very much.
No
you mentioned earlier about, I guess, your average or not so average day involving relying on some other people to kind of help you through the learning process and whatnot. So I'm sure creating a company, even running a business, is never a one-man show, but do you think you could give us specific examples on how collaboration plays a role in your case specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started the company. I have a co-founder, and it was one of my friends, and he completed a BA at MUN as well. And we started together, not really knowing what we were getting into in some ways. And he had previous experience in the video game sector, whereas I had none. So he was bringing a lot of that knowledge in there, whereas I had the MBA, and I brought that together. And initially there was, I mean, throughout time, there's a lot of collaboration, but the initial part, there's a lot of hashing out to be done. And it's very, very tough, butting heads. I'd always caution people, not saying there's anything wrong with him, but I'd always caution people to wonder if you should start a business with a good friend or a significant other, because you're going to butt heads. And luckily we have a good relationship, and that's fine. But the collaboration isn't always that collaborative, unfortunately. And in the end, though, we pulled through with a lot of things. But just planning the whole company in general, the overarching ideas of a company, it's not like you can just in my view at least, look at it and say, oh, I'm going to create a company. This is exactly what I'm going to do. And that's it. No adjustments, no nothing, done. If you start it with someone else, you've got to work with them. You got to figure things out and see what's going to work. You can't just be so single-minded on it. So collaboration is a big factor in that. And then obviously once we brought in more of an international team and more people on our team, we had to collaborate with them, work with their schedules, which is why my schedule is all over the place in some ways. But that was a big part of that with respect to the company. And obviously previously with teaching, I had to collaborate a lot with the other school staff, and that's a big part of teaching as well.
Sure. I did want to mention you do have 3 different degrees, so quite a few notches under your belt. That's quite amazing. I was wondering if there were any common threads or even themes that you've seen across your 3 degrees, or any similarities or commonalities there?
Just to clarify, similarities or commonalities with how the degrees went at MUN, or what I took from the degree, or just anything and everything that comes into my head?
more what you took, what came out of it, for your own personal, what you think you gained that's consistent across the 3 of them.
I think gain is consistent across the 3 of them. I think, calling back to what I mentioned earlier, I think the writing skills are consistent. I used to tutor at the writing center as well at MUN. So I think that, that was always something that all the degrees required. So it just so happened that they all required a lot of writing, even though, education degree is an arts degree, it still requires that writing foundation, business as well, a lot of reports, a lot of analysis. Interestingly, though, with the MBA program, most of the people in that program were technically minded. So they came from business backgrounds or engineering, I found. So just kind of a side note with that. So the makeup versus education, where it was a bit of a mix, but mostly arts related backgrounds. Me bringing that arts background into my MBA was quite different. So I found, the more technical mathematical components tough, but people would go to me for like the report stuff, and they knew I was like the reliable writer there. So those skills definitely continued on. Critical thinking as well. So with the BA, I mean, you're looking at specifically with history, you're analyzing historical details and breaking that down and wondering, like, why did this certain thing happen, and comparing past events to present and contextualizing and so on and so forth. But in education, you're taking that and applying it to school context. So actively looking at how can I best help these students? How can I be a better teacher? And critically thinking about that. But in the MBA, it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot of case studies, and it's a lot of analyzing in that way. So sure, very different in each respect, but also the same core critical analysis was required to succeed in each degree. So I think that was one thread that definitely carried through.
Sure. I wanted to ask, specific to Memorial, were there any specific programs? I know you mentioned you yourself tutoring at the Writing Center, but were there any specific programs or offered at Memorial that you think helped further your career along, or helped you as you went along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I already mentioned the Writing Center, so I'll just quickly comment on that. So that provided, I did that during my BA, and I think it went into my education degree a bit. It was kind of that, yeah. So I did it during the end of my BA and the start of my education degree, and that's a great program offered by MUN because it provided work experience that was beyond the service industry, something a bit more like professional. It also helped me build my skills, and since I went into an education degree, it helped me with teaching. And it's great that MUN has that program, because it would almost be good enough as it is, even if it was just a volunteer basis. I don't want to tell them to do that, though. They should be paying people, but I'm glad I was paid. But even without being paid, it still had a lot of benefits. So the fact that it was paid on top of that was great. Outside of that, though, the internship program in education was great. Now, on the flip side, I do think that should be paid, but that's complicated. The MBA, I did get involved in a lot in my MBA. The Center for Entrepreneurship, I did an internship there for 4 months, and that was right as the pandemic was starting. It finished roughly. So that was fun times. The business was getting off the ground just before that, so it was a pretty rough timing there. Also at the it's at the Mara Innovation Center, the Signal Hill campus. I did Genesis Evolution, which
Oh,
is
I didn't
another
know.
entrepreneurship and development program. And through the Center for Social Enterprise, I was part of the first graduating class through their incubator there for business development, with a focus on socially conscious design and making sure that your business is giving back and not harming, and just thinking about the world around you rather than just the bottom line of making money. So I think those programs offered by MUN were just great, and they really helped get me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of playing on that last question. What additional professional or skill development did you utilize or would you recommend based on your time at MUN, if it was like particular clubs or societies you're involved in?
I got to be honest, I have a lot of regrets with my BA. I didn't get involved in a lot of clubs and societies. So if I'm speaking to anyone right now, it's to get more involved if you're not already.
Mm-hmm.
I was very consumed with my studies in my BA. At the writing center, other than that writing center experience, which was paid, and I'm not even sure if it wasn't paid, I would have done it, because even
Mm-hmm.
though it's beneficial, it's, to me, it was always study, do like work on assignments to a crazy degree
Mm-hmm.
just to get a bump up in, maybe 2 percentage points over what I would have gotten if I hadn't put in that much time. I'm not saying people should not work hard, but I do think I missed out on a lot of social experiences and a lot of great programs that MUN has in general, and for the BA program that and societies that I just didn't get involved in because it was all about work and studies, and I got waivers to complete more courses than normally possible in a semester. So it was too much. It was too much
Mm-hmm.
overall, and I do have a lot of regrets about that. I was pretty involved in my Bachelor of Education, but some of that still carried through, in essence, where I was very, very much focused on, work, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But after teaching for a few years and in my MBA, it softened a lot. I think going out into the professional sphere, seeing what life could be like outside of the academic environment and getting like
Mm-hmm.
absorbed into the rigors of school really helped me see that there are other experiences as well beyond just looking for, those top grades, those top marks, and finding ways to enrich myself outside of that. But once again, I do have a lot of regrets about not getting involved. And off the top of my head, I can't think of that many societies I was consistently involved in my BA. And not saying they're not out there, I just didn't take advantage, and it's unfortunate. I do regret that today.
You mentioned earlier that kind of while you were during your BA, you weren't really thinking of the job market per se, kind of just getting through it, and then you found the love for teaching and then got your Bachelor of Education as well. Would you say career prospects were ever a source of worry or stress for you, at least during your BA before you kind of fell on what you'd end up doing?
Absolutely. And I think that's a layered issue. So one, it's public perception. And I'm not sure if that's a projection. So with a BA, there's the, which I think is completely incorrect, assumption that the employability is much lower than other degrees. So
Mm-hmm.
professional programs obviously immediately transition someone into a job or try to, but a lot of people, a lot of the, I guess, discourse in the public is about the negatives around BAs and employability. And,
Mm-hmm.
you hear the joke, if you look at liberal arts degrees or anything related to that, is like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to be, working for no money for the rest of your life or begging for money. And I think that's a problem, but I had internalized it a bit. So even though I wanted to do a BA, that was still in the back of my mind. So whether or not that's
Mm-hmm.
legitimate, that was in there. That perception was something I carried with me. And as for wondering what to do, I do feel that I struggled a bit before I decided I wanted to be a teacher. As I mentioned, I changed my major multiple times. I had no idea what I wanted to do for a career. I was just
Mm-hmm.
picking things that I found interesting, and then I changed it to something else when I'm going to go toward this. And at one point, I wanted to be a police officer, but I couldn't because I was colorblind. So that was
Oh.
pretty unfortunate when I found that out. That's I switched out of my criminology program in BC when I found that out. But it's um, it's tough. It's tough because I know how I felt and how concerned I was about my job future, even though I didn't know what I wanted to do. It wasn't like I was looking toward a career path and saying, how do I get there? I just didn't know. And I do feel that more can be done about the messaging and more can be done to support students. I'm not saying it's just a MUN thing, but I do think a lot of people can get involved and a lot of organizational assistance can come in to ensure that students feel like they're empowered through their BA and they don't feel like it's a dead end. Like, where do I go from here? They don't feel like, if I get a BA, I have to get a BED, otherwise I can't get employed, for example. So it should be the case where these are the avenues. You have a BA, this is where you can work. And I didn't feel like I heard that messaging enough, and it really it stressed me out, to be honest. I can only imagine how much it stressed out some others who were even more concerned.
Well, that's why you're here at BA Professional. Anyways, I was gonna ask, was there anything particular that you think helped you curb that worry, or do you think you kind of just held on to it until you eventually found what you wanted to do?
I think I held on to it, to be honest. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I got so focused into my studies, so focused in almost an obsession with grades and exams would always stress me out. So I'd spend so much time prepping for those, that even though the worry was there, I just kept pushing it aside and saying, just focus on my studies, just focus on my studies. Things will fall into place. Things will fall into place. I'll figure it out. But it was very much focused on I guess the reward through doing well during my studies rather than looking toward that career goal. So yeah, I just distracted myself, essentially. I distracted myself and obsessed about doing well in school, which once again, going back to the society's question, I'd advise people to just get out there and do more and experience more of what the university has to offer rather than just doing as many courses as possible and just focusing on marks. That's I, as a teacher, I saw the other side of it, where it's not the be all end all. I know school's about getting grades, getting degrees, but post-secondary can be so much more. And my obsession with grades kind of protected me from worrying about jobs, but it also hurt me in the long run, where it took me a while to recover. Like, even still, I've thought about taking additional courses and I almost get panicked thinking about doing exams again, thinking about how much prep and how I need to get this certain mark. And I'll like wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and go, oh no, I forgot to hand this assignment. And then realize, oh wait, I'm done my degrees. So it clearly, it stuck with me, and I internalized a lot of that. So it did distract me from the job issue, but it's also not healthy in the long run, clearly.
One of the wrapping up here, I wanted to ask, for any BA students that might have similar career aspirations, whether that be in eventually running their own business or even with teaching, is there anything you wish someone had told you during your BA or even your degrees in general?
Yeah, so I'll speak to the teaching first. One of the reasons I left the profession, I love teaching, the actual act of teaching. And I love dealing with the students and building those bonds and, ensuring that their learning, I was meeting their learning needs and trying my best in that way and creating lesson plans. I wish I was prepared for all the additional stuff. And that's one of the reasons I left the profession. I got very jaded about the admin tasks and all the backroom dealings and all the staff issues and the data based analysis of the students. And in the end, sometimes I felt that they were numbers versus actual individuals. And sometimes I find that teaching, and to be honest, post-secondary, kind of loses sight of what makes these institutions function. And it's the students, it's the kids when I was teaching. And I got really disillusioned because of that. And I wish I had known how much of my job was going to be taken up dealing with headaches from outside of my classroom versus what I felt I was actually there to do, which was teach and help students. So that's one thing I wish I had known going into teaching. As for the business and in general, the video game industry, it's really cutthroat. And I knew it going in, and I knew it would be long hours, but it is very thankless industry. I love video games, and I still do, and I love what I'm doing. But the thing that pushes me forward is my passion to do with culture and heritage preservation, not video games, to be honest. And that's not all the company is going to do. We want to expand into other forms of digital media, but the video game industry it can be a very dark place sometimes, and you can feel very helpless. And It can be a controversial place too. There's a lot of things that need to be improved with the employment world and the working conditions. And there's a lot of, especially in larger developers, there's a lot of long hours, a lot of unpaid overtime, and a lot of expectation that you're basically supposed to make this company your life. And I tried to, as much as I can, make sure that my company wasn't like that, but I'm going against the general trend in the industry, especially with large companies. So overall, basically, it's not a very positive industry to be involved in. And I try to be as positive as I can. And I've had to dig for that positivity a lot of the time. So I wish I had known the full extent, and maybe that's my own fault, as to how negative the environment can be. But once again, my passion for culture and heritage and preservation and finding different ways to do that helps me push through. And I still love video games, so that helps as well. But
Sure.
but yeah, it's a tough career.
All right. Well, thank you for that. My last question is a more kind of general version of the last question, honestly, rather than just something you wish someone had told you. Kind of any advice in general you would give, just kind of a parting note for BA students in general who may be worried about career aspirations, who might be interested in entrepreneurship but not quite sure how to get started, who might be worried about getting into teaching as well. Just parting word of advice if you have any.
And this is going to sound a bit fluffy and it's kind of cliche, but I really think people should do what they love. Don't follow the money if there is money to follow. Sometimes there's not, but people should do what they love. I know of people who've taken huge pay cuts to follow what they love, and they've had no regrets other than, the money is not everything once you have enough money to survive. And I think, and I got caught up in it too, but I've seen people get caught up in, this is what I think people want me to be. This is what I think people want me to do. This is what my parents want me to do. This is what my friends are doing, so I've got to measure up to them. But in the end, find what you want to do. Find what makes you happy. Find what pushes you forward. Find what makes you get up in the morning and brings you joy and fulfillment and that energy that this life is worth living and this path is worth going on. And once you find that, it's very powerful, the effect it can have. And in some ways I'm still searching, but I have found a lot of things that I love, and I love teaching, but it wasn't quite right for me and I left. And I think as part of that, it's the freedom to be wrong about what matters to you and what means a lot to you and what career path you're on. So you might think you're destined to do a certain thing and be willing to change if that's not working out for you. And some people feel stuck because of that. They say, I'm in this career path and I actually don't like it. And some people stay in it until they retire. And I've made the comment before, some people just live to die. And it sounds really dark, but they just get into this career, they're miserable, and they stay in it for the rest of their lives, and they retire and they eventually die. And to me, that's not living up to potential. So it's when I think back, I have a lot of regrets of the choices I made, but now I'm really pushing to do things that I want to do and doing things that will help others and that'll enrich myself and putting those positive vibes out there to the world. And a lot of people feel stuck. So don't feel stuck. Follow what you love and don't feel like you have to do something just because you think someone else wants you to do it that way. So kind of a hodgepodge of advice there, but that's the way I see it.
No, it was definitely helpful to hear, even for myself as well. I'm sure for everyone else who will be watching this. So thank you, Evan, for taking some time out of your day, out of your very usually non-average day, to speak to us and answer our questions. I definitely got a lot from it, and I'm sure everyone who watches will as well. So thank you so much.
Perfect. I hope it helps. Thank you so much for having me.
It most definitely did.